When you first came to the bar, where did you have chambers?
That's an interesting story. Chambers were very tight at the time. There was no room in Wentworth and Selborne. Mina House chambers had been established, and they had a very small library in the basement in 225 Macquarie Street, and the library had a few seats and a ledge where you put library books. And I think I started out on a ledge in the Mina House library for a period of time with others. John Hamilton was one of them, who was also in the library there with me, and a few others, before we were able to get share rooms in Mina House.
Pretty uncomfortable way to do your work.
No, well, everything was on the run then, because you had to be ready to go to court at a moment's notice without much of a brief. And so we just made do.
Did you find it disconcerting, nevertheless? You said a moment ago you like to have lists, which obviously, I suppose, implies that you like to be organised, and yet you're having to work, as you say, on your feet in that sense. Did you find that disconcerting, or did you get used to it pretty quickly?
Oh, I think we all adapt to those sort of circumstances. It wasn't for that long before we were able to share a room. But you're right, I like to be in control. Doesn't always happen in court, of course, but I like to be as organised as possible.
When you started out, what were the main areas you were practising in?
Whatever came along in the early days, and a lot of it was local court work and small criminal work. And I can well remember we did lots of traffic offence cases for the NRMA. It was Sammy Wolf was the solicitor, and you got half a guinea for a plea of guilty, but you might sometimes have 20 pleas of guilty to do, and you got 5 guineas for a defended traffic matter.
A guinea was a lot of money in those days, or I think they were calling them guars or something. I learned this expression when I talked to Michael McHugh not long ago.
I don't know that.
You never heard the expression guar? Because a few mentioned the guars instead of guineas. I thought this must be
the shorthand for guineas.
Yes.
Well, it was £1, £1.
But you didn't yourself call them guars?
No.
But a guinea anyway was a lot of money in those days and considered good money for a barrister.
Well, it was better than nothing, because I can remember my first articles of clerkship. I think it was £5 a week was the salary, so it's not a great deal. So you can, if you make a few guineas, then you're doing quite well. The other thing that flowed in those early years was public solicitor briefs for tenants in protected tenancies, and they paid what became $21, so I guess that was 10 guineas.
Who did you share chambers with when you eventually did get chambers?
I think, I'm not absolutely certain of this, but I think I shared with either Jim Staples or John Hamilton. It was only for a very short time because things were becoming very overcrowded at Mina House, and a group of us were interested in forming a new chamber, and we did that in Forbes Chambers in 127 Phillip Street, which was a building which is now part of the First Colonial Bank, a building that has obviously been demolished. But we took a lease in 1965 on the whole of that building, and a group of 30 of us or something like that went into that building.
You came to feel quite strongly, I know, about the importance of accommodation for new barristers, and in fact you ended up setting up quite a few different chambers.
Well, certainly with others, we formed a number of cooperatives. We formed the one for Forbes Chambers, which was a great success, and then we formed one for Frederick Jordan Chambers in 1972 in Macquarie Street, in what is now the National Dispute Centre building. And then later on we formed another one called Edmund Barton Chambers in the Prudential building in Martin Place.